What is Jiepang?
So Jiepang is basically a Foursquare of China. When I was in the U.S., I used Foursquare, and I had a deep feeling that that would also be a successful experience in China as well. A lot of people ask me, are you a clone? Or are you just a clone? And I think my answer is arguably, yes, we are a clone, but more than just being a Sansai clone, which is just copying an appearance of a Foursquare. I feel like we really understand what made Foursquare successful in the US, and we understand what our business goal is in terms of creating the most basic social network around LBS. And so in terms of where our product is today, we are a Foursquare of China. In terms of our business goal, I think it's more abstract than that. We're really about creating the biggest and the best social graph around LBS, and I think that's going to be huge.
Excellent, brilliant. So how long have you been in China?
I've been in China for about 7 months now.
Right, excellent. And Jiepang's been going for?
Jiepang has been online for just about 3 months. We started working on this project end of February, and we launched the 13th of May. Yeah.
How about funding? What's the deal there?
Currently, we are angel investing.
Right. Yeah. Excellent, brilliant. And since operating in China, have you come across any peculiarities? Anything interesting about working in China in this space? Yeah,
I think I would say that beyond the fact that in China mobile internet is at a different place than it is in the U.S., which is the environment that Foursquare really started to become popular. So on that regard, iPhone is really hot in the U.S. And Nokia is very hot in China. Or low-end phones are actually pretty hot in terms of surfing the web and using applications and services on the web in China. Aside from that, I think what's most intriguing and relevant to our business is the fact that in the US you have a very open platform in terms of Facebook and Twitter, opening up their platform and social graph to a lot of applications and services. And so Foursquare, if you look at the application, it's really a client or a utility that links to Facebook and Twitter. And so when we first started talking about should we do a Foursquare in China, one of the things that was holding us back actually was the possibility that the social network environment in China was not as open. When we discovered that we could partner, and we did partner with the largest social networking platforms in China, we really felt this was the right opportunity. So that's when we started to build this thing.
Great, definitely. You have partnered with a lot of the big social networks like Douban and Renren.
Yeah.
And I think that's certainly one of the most impressive things about your site when compared with competitors. How did you manage to get these partnerships and these?
I think a lot of this in China is based on the DNA and the relationships of people. And a lot of our team members have backgrounds. They used to work at companies like Xiaonei, Renren, Fanfo, Douban. And I think being able to think like a social network is very important when we're working on this business. And I think a lot of similar services came out of backgrounds that were not as social. They came out of backgrounds that were doing mapping technologies and GPS, which is also a critical piece of this business. And I think our specialty or our background was of a social one. And so that really enabled us to think about how do we partner them. And I think it's going to enable us to think about how do we maintain a partnership in the long term.
Great, excellent. So something else I noticed about about your site, Jiepang, is that you've got all sorts of locations. You've got loads and loads of locations and no one's ever checked into. Those weren't created by end users. Where did they come from? Where did those locations come from?
A lot of the locations we crawled off the web and created our own database of locations, just to be honest. But what's really interesting, I think, is that the most popular areas or locations that people check into on Jiepang are totally created by our end users. And what makes this really intriguing is the fact that Foursquare, about 2 months ago, they launched a report talking about the most popular locations that people on Foursquare would check into, and those were your home and your office. And in China, we found that that was exactly the same thing on Jiepang. Yeah, and so what's really interesting is I think a lot of this is actually a personalized experience. People were already sharing where I am on their Renrens or on their Doubans. And today, with Jiepang, they're doing the same thing, and it's still a very personalized experience.
Right, okay. Looking back at the way microblogging has developed in China, we started with lots of small independent companies like yourself, and then, for example, Digu and Zuosha,
Yeah.
small companies like this, and then sooner or later the giants of China's internet, so Sina, Sohu,
Right.
came out with microblogs, and for example, Sina's microblog Weibo is now, without a doubt, the biggest.
Right.
Are you worried about this sort of thing happening?
Yeah.
Could Sina come out with a killer?
I think that
Jiepang
our
killer?
position is that we're cautiously optimistic. And with regards to Sina, I think that's a great example. They are working on LBS, and we're maintaining close ties with them on that aspect. I think what's interesting is that Twitter acquired a company in the US called Geo API. And that really became the core of their LBS strategy, which is to become a platform for developers, including a Foursquare, to be able to tap into their social graph and to be able to have a way to power all these LBS applications and be able to index them and serve better advertising on their platform. And so all that is to say, I think that these two models will coexist. You'll have a Foursquare and you'll have a Twitter. And in China, I believe that you'll have a Sina, which has to stay attentive to its mass in terms of its mass goal. And you'll also have a company like ours to really focus on that narrow end user experience. And I think in the long term, it's really about speed of execution. If you look at companies like Renren and Douban, and these were at one point in time very small as well. They were not started as a corporate type of arm or as a feature of a huge portal. And so I think that one of our goals as a small company is to run extremely fast and to build up the massive type of quantity that we need to stay alive in the long term.
Okay, great. How do you see the future of location-based services, LBS,
Yeah.
both globally and in China?
I'm very excited about it. I think that LBS is going to be huge. And the reason it's going to be huge is because smartphones are becoming huge. And when you look at the GPS or the location-based technology that's part of the hardware, and you couple that with being always on the internet, and then you couple that again with great experiences on an HTML5 mobile web or a client application experience, you get user experiences that can really draw end users in. And I think that looking at the bigger picture of how LBS is going to affect everyone, it's really just a function. It's a function of a smartphone. And because of that, it's going to be a function added to just about any type of service or application that we can imagine. Services like dating or social or food. I think these types of services are going to be first, and people are already moving in. But even news and information and shopping, I think, will also become part of that experience as well.
Okay, great. Brilliant, thank you.
Thanks.